This is the candidate forum for the State Senate District 45 and State House District 89. All candidates have been invited to participate in this forum. I am Jean Bancroft, member of the League of Women Voters of Johnson County, and I will be the moderator for this evening's forum. The forum is being live streamed on the League's Facebook page and also being filmed for rebroadcast on the 3 public education and government channels in Iowa City, Coralville, and North Liberty. Please check their websites for scheduling. Additional information about the candidates can be found on the League's vote411.org website. The League of Women Voters is a volunteer, nonpartisan organization that neither supports nor opposes any party or candidate, which is why we have the policy that campaign literature is welcome outside of this room following the forum, and no button, signs, or literature can be worn or distributed inside this room. The League does take positions after considerable study of issues and acts to influence decision makers on those issues. We work to not only register voters, but also to provide them with information on issues to assist their participation in our government. Membership is open to anyone 16 years of age and older. Please join us. We can use your time, your talent, and your financial resources. League members advocate and inform voters. Democracy works best when more people are involved. Find us at www.LWVJC.org. The views expressed in this forum are those of the candidates. All viable candidates have been invited to participate. After candidates have been introduced, they will each have 2 minutes for opening remarks. We will then present questions to them, starting with one from the League, followed by one submitted on cards by you in the audience. League members are distributing cards and pencils for you to write questions on. You may submit as many written questions for the candidates as you wish. Hold up the cards, and a League member will collect them throughout the forum and then bring them to me to read. Questions that fall in the same general category may be consolidated if time does not allow for every question to be addressed. If that happens, you may contact the candidates directly after the forum or at another time. Each candidate will then have 1 minute to respond to that question. Due to the time frame, there will not be time for rebuttals. Near the end of scheduled time for this event, each candidate will have 2 minutes for closing remarks. The speaking order will be rotated throughout the evening. Susie Corbin-Muir will serve as our timekeeper, and she will alert candidates when time is about up and when it is up. Yes. Candidates for Senate District 45 are Harold Weilbrenner, Republican candidate. I was informed just before the forum that he will be unable to attend tonight. Janice Weiner, Democratic candidate. Candidates for House District 92 are Jacob Onken, Republican.
89.
Oh, wow. Yes, thank you. For House District 89 are Jacob Onken, Republican candidate, and Elinor Levin, Democratic candidate. Audience members, please write your questions on the cards provided and pass them to League members who will advance them to the moderator. Let's get started with opening statements. Please speak directly into the microphone so you can be heard here and over the television broadcast. So candidates, we will start with your 2-minute opening statements, starting with Janice Weiner.
Good evening. I'm Janice Weiner, the Democratic candidate for State Senate District 45. That's most of Iowa City and University Heights. I'm fortunate to have benefited from a world-class public school education right here in Iowa City. That, plus my 26-year career serving my country as a U.S. diplomat, inform who I am. I've worn many hats in my life. I'm a law school graduate, raised 2 adopted girls on my own, a city councilor, president of the board of my synagogue, and I'm raising my almost 5-year-old granddaughter. And I'm running for the same reason that so many other career public servants are. Those who've served in the military, the Foreign Service, the intelligence services. We've represented our country at home and abroad. We've done the work of democracy, and we're not about to see it torn down here at home. I was in East Berlin when the Berlin Wall fell, and I witnessed firsthand the incredible courage of East Germans determined to obtain the freedoms that we take for granted. And this election is about our freedoms and our rights. Democracy and voting rights, abortion and reproductive rights, and all the other rights that flow from the right to privacy. The right to a world-class public education. Public dollars are for public schools, period. My parents came here for a job and stayed because of the world-class education system. So much is on the ballot in just 4 weeks. National races matter, but post-Dobbs, the state legislative and gubernatorial races are key. Give Democrats one lever of power, and we can start to work to move this state forward again. I'm Janice Weiner. I'm running for the state Senate, and I ask for your vote.
Thank you, Janice. Jacob Onken, would you go next, please?
Thank you. My name is Jacob Onken. I'm running for Iowa House District 89. And to clarify, that's most of South Iowa City, just south of Melrose Avenue and also south of Muscatine Avenue and down to the bottom of the city. It's hard to imagine who made the boundaries, but if you want to look and you want to be more clear on it, you can check out on my website. There's a link to it. Anyhow, I ran for office because of multiple different issues that are concerning to me. The first and foremost is our stance as Iowans on life, and I'm a pro-life advocate. I believe that we should take care of and raise up these beautiful babies even before they're born. And it's important to me, and I want to be a part of the solution here in Iowa, crafting a law that will work for Iowans. And it's been a really long time since a conservative has run for this seat. It's been about 50 years since Johnson County has sent a House rep that is a Republican to Des Moines. And I would say it's been a long time since anybody's even attempted in this specific seat. I know the person who's retiring, the incompetent Mary, she ran up unopposed for the most part. And so I believe that democracy, we live in a republic, and we should utilize our democratic abilities. And one of those things is we need to have options. And so in my eyes, it's unacceptable for there not to be more options for people to vote and express their opinions. And here in Iowa City, it's no different. So I'm running to give people the option, and I'm here because I believe that with conservative principles, we can maintain traditional family values, and that was the best thing for Iowa right now.
Thank you very much. Elinor Levin.
Good evening. Thank you to the League for putting this on. I personally know the work that goes into staging a forum like this, and that is not to be overlooked. I am Elinor Levin. I have lived in Iowa City on and off since 2009, and I am an Iowan by choice twice over. I love this place. When I first moved to Iowa to attend Cornell College, I was honestly embarrassed to tell people I was moving here because I didn't know anything about Iowa except cornfields. Then I got here, and I found a community that embraced me, people who I fell in love with, opportunities to get outdoors and to participate in art and to enjoy all kinds of recreation and service opportunities that make this place where I wanted to call my home long term. But what concerns me is how many people in my own generation and those coming up behind us are not making that same choice. So that's why I'm here today. I'm seeking to make sure that Iowa moving forward is a place where people feel as welcome as I did, where people see a future for themselves, whether it's an economic and work future, whether it's a future for their family, whether it's a future for their pursuits and hobbies and recreation. We need to ensure that this place is safe, future forward thinking and the best that we can have for our future generations and those of us who are here now. I thank you all for your attention, for wanting to be educated voters, and I look forward to seeing posts as people start submitting their early ballots and voting early on October 19th.
Thank you, Elinor, and thank you to all the candidates for your opening statements. This first question is from the League. It is, what is your position on the proposed amendment to the Constitution related to gun control? And we're going to start with Ms. Weiner.
Public measure number 1 would amend the Iowa Constitution in a way that does not reflect the Second Amendment. Iowa already has the Second Amendment. It's called the Second Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. When the legislature decide to put forward a Second Amendment or a Second Amendment stand-in for the Iowa Constitution, it would have been wonderful if they had kept the wording of the U.S. Constitution. But what they've done is by inserting the term strict scrutiny, they have created an amendment that would make it extremely difficult for us ever to pass reasonable, common sense gun legislation going forward. Red flag laws in case people prove to be a danger, closing the boyfriend loophole.
Thank you. And the next speaker would be Ms. Levin.
Thank you. I firmly believe that all Iowans who actually understand this amendment are going to vote no on it. The amendment is, as Janice clarified, not how it's being billed. It's not the Second Amendment. It is a dangerous precedent that when you look at other states that have passed similar wording, they end up in the top 5 highest gun violence cases in the country. Gun violence doesn't just mean homicide. It also means self-inflicted harm. And I'm particularly concerned about a couple of laws that we've only recently passed that may be thrown out, may be removed if this legislation passed, including, I'll give one example. We only recently enshrined a law that requires safe storage, secure storage in homes with children. To me, that's something we need to know, that guns and ammunition are going to be stored securely in homes with children.
Thank you. Mr. Onken?
It seems to me that our fundamental rights are under attack all across the country. Here in Iowa, it's not an exception. We have our right to free speech, which is constantly under attack. We have our religious rights, which are frequently under attack. We have our right to bear arms, which is a fundamental right of the United States Constitution. It is specifically enshrined by our Constitution. And that is supposed to balance the power so that the government cannot do whatever they want to us. And I believe that Iowa, this Constitution, makes it more clear. And I believe that the strict scrutiny standard is sufficient because the Second Amendment is not something that should be taken away or taken for granted willy-nilly by the government. So it is the highest amount of scrutiny the court needs to use to look at this amendment. And so I disagree with Elinor that Iowans are going to vote against this. I think that they will vote for it because I think that Iowans recognize the importance of the Second Amendment. And I'll just add to that, when this occurs, we're going to have the option to vote for it on the actual ballot in 2024.
Thank you. Our next question has to do with childcare, and I am combining, just so the audience knows, these two questions kind of are very closely related. What will you do to support Iowa's working families and employees through accessible and affordable childcare? How will you address the childcare shortage in Iowa? And Ms. Levin is first.
childcare shortage needs to be addressed from two different ends. It needs to be addressed in terms of childcare workers being paid adequately and having benefits that make them want to and be incentivized to remain in or embark upon that career. But it also needs to be addressed in terms of access, in terms of, do we have childcare facilities, but also in-home opportunities that are distributed throughout our communities equitably? Does everyone have the ability to have their children looked after in a place that is safe, in a place that is well resourced, and in a place that is close enough to their home or their work that in the event of some sort of emergency or some sort of need, we all know how often kids get sick, they're able to be there for their kids, get back to them. I know when I was a child, my mom worked over an hour away from where my child care was, and that was a problem. It was tough for her.
Thank you. Mr. Onken?
I believe that child care is a privilege and it is not a right. That said, I understand that there's needs. Some people cannot afford child care. I think that we should take measures to prevent or have options for people who cannot afford it. If they're working jobs and they still can't afford it, they obviously need to put food on their table for their family. We have to balance that, though, with the other benefits that they're getting from the government. And if they are working, that is one situation where childcare, I think, would be necessary. If they're not working, I don't think that that's something that the government should be paying for with our tax dollars. I agree we need to pay the workers sufficiently. With that said, I typically don't agree with government mandates on prices and that kind of thing. Unless it's a government-run institution, then the government would have the ability to set the wage. If it's not a government-run institution, I don't think that the government should have a hand in setting the wage, as it would be a private enterprise.
Thank you. Ms. Weiner?
Thank you. So I see childcare as fundamental to our economy. We need to solve the childcare crisis to be able to have more people in the workforce. Wages are key. There have been a lot of efforts to increase the number of childcare buildings, the opportunities to expand facilities, but those aren't worth anything if we can't get the workers. And childcare centers continue to close because of a lack of workers, because people can get paid more working for fast food. Childcare, in my view, is part of the education continuum. It needs to feed into pre-K and with universal wraparound care, which will allow all kids to start K through 12 on an equal footing. We need to allow parents who are on child care assistance to give them a little bit more so that they can get their kids into the child care as opposed to expecting them somehow to ante up the extra money. Often those are the kids who may need it the most. Child care is fundamental to our workforce and to virtually everything else in our society.
Thank you. Next question, we'll start with Mr. Onken. This one is, what is your position on school vouchers and public school funding?
I do think we have huge issues in our state and in our country with our public schools. I think that private schools are very expensive, obviously, if you look at the numbers. I think charter schools are great. I hope to see more charter schools in Iowa's future. But I fully support school choice. I think that taxpayers should decide where they want to send their children to school. If it's really far away, then that's up to them to get their kids to school. But I think encouraging the competition in the marketplace of our education system is going to benefit our schools. If our schools start to lose students and some of the funding, not all of the funding, but some of the funding for those students, then our schools will be forced to focus more on academics and the things that parents think are important instead of focusing on things like equality and equity and all of these things that you see plastered all over the Iowa City schools. However, we have some of the lowest scores in the state. We have some of the worst scores, and our students are not able to keep up with the competition in other states and in Iowa. So I think that's a problem, and we need to put the focus on education, and the competition will do that.
Thank you. Ms. Weiner, same question.
Iowa has a reputation for excellence in education. It's what has brought people to the state and had them stay. We don't have oceans and mountains, but we were number one in public education. It's the tide that lifts all boats. In my view, public dollars are for public schools, full stop. 98% of Iowan kids go to public schools. There are many deserts in this state where there is not even an option for a private school. We need to support all levels of public education, from universal pre-K through K through 12, apprenticeships, community college, the Regents universities, so that we can again make this the flagship of our state and bring people here who come and then stay because the educational system is so outstanding.
Thank you. Ms. Levin?
As a public school teacher, I wasn't focused on what was being allocated from the state budget. To be quite honest, I was focused on every single kid in my classroom, and I was focused on how I could make the resources I was provided stretch as far as possible. And the reality is that if we want to look at what we value, we should look at how we spend. The funding for public schools in Iowa has gone down as our education system has degraded. It's not hard to see where those funds are lacking. And the truth is that when public schools are not adequately funded, they are not adequately staffed, which leads to safety concerns, which leads to difficulty meeting the needs of individual students, which leads to all kinds of difficulties. Funding our public schools with our public money is a public good. Funding private schools is a choice that individuals can make, but it's not the realm or the responsibility of our state government.
Thank you. Next question, we'll start with Ms. Weiner on this one. Despite assurances from election and security officials otherwise, and the refusal of former President Trump's lawyers to allege fraud in a court of law, many voters continue to believe that the last election was not conducted fairly. What are your views of how our elections are run? Do you share these concerns? And if not, how would you work against that narrative?
I do not share those concerns. I have worked at the last several elections as a poll worker, and I can tell you that the security that's in place, the bipartisan teams, the teamwork that goes on at every single polling place, and the need to put on seals and have everyone there for the counts makes it an incredibly secure system. We've had very, very few cases of voter fraud over many years. What I've seen actually is the Republican legislature rolling back our voting rights over the last few years, ever since 2017. In fact, in the middle of COVID, I went to speak to that at the state legislature because it's such a key issue. We need to be out there talking to people, expanding voting rights, and giving everyone the right to vote, because it is the fundamental bedrock of our society is the vote.
Thank you. Ms. Levin.
I completely agree with Janice. I also have been an elections official many times, and I have seen the efforts that go in both in preparation for elections and on the day, as well as afterwards, to ensure that vote counts are tallied accurately, that folks are in the right place, especially when you have things that are complicating factors like redistricting. Now throwing in additional hurdles to voting, like shorter times to return ballots, shorter times to register, things like that, are not helping with the right to vote. What they are doing is making it more difficult for Iowans to have their voice heard by the state, by the local, and by the federal government. It is absolutely imperative that we put our efforts behind ensuring that any actual founded fraud is addressed, and that all accusations of fraud that are unfounded do not become impediments to voting.
Thank you. Mr. Onken.
I think that sounds like both of them have experience watching the polls and such, and I don't know that this is a huge issue in Iowa, and I think that's great. One less thing for us to worry about. I do think it was a big problem in certain places, such as Pennsylvania, Michigan, Georgia, North Carolina, Michigan, and Wisconsin. I think that in those areas, there was a lot of voter fraud. There was people who were dead casting votes. There was people's votes not being counted. There was people who were voting multiple times. I think that you need to be able to have proof of some kind of a license, or you have to have proof that you're a citizen, that you're a resident in the place that you vote. I think voter registration serves that point, and I think that's a great thing. I don't think these are issues that are huge in Iowa, but I do think that we should be wary and be careful as we move forward with votes. I think that we need to make sure that we're ensuring that people who are voting can vote and that they vote one time.
Thank you. Next question, we'll start with Ms. Levin. What are your thoughts about combining the Department of Human Services with the Department of Health?
Oh, okay. Switching gears. Gosh.
Yeah, that was a little whiplash.
It's okay, I can roll. So my thoughts, I would say, first of all, that I am neither an expert on the Department of Health nor the Department of Human Services, and so I would not expect that my perspective is the most important one in making a decision such as that. Now, that being said, you've asked me, so I guess I will talk a little bit. I think there is value to recognizing when services overlap and when we can streamline services to ensure that people are having their needs met in the best possible way and that they don't have to work so hard to go through so much bureaucratic red tape or to find the right agency for their particular concern. That being said, I think we need to talk to the folks whose lives would be impacted most significantly before making a decision like that.
Thank you. Mr. Onken?
Whenever we can get rid of an agency, I think it's great because it'll save us all money. The government is, when they create something, they never get rid of it, even if we don't need it anymore. They're notorious for this, especially at the federal level. And I don't like my tax dollars being wasted, and I don't think any of us do. So if there's overlap, it should absolutely be looked at. Audits should be done, and we should get rid of these agencies that are not serving the people. Now, that's not to say that they don't have a purpose. None of them have a purpose, nothing like that. I do think we need agencies. I do think that they have their own purpose. But it's like, to me, it seems like they just grow and they get more funding and they get more funding and they grow. And before you know it, you have an alphabet soup of different agencies and you don't even know what they do. And then they're the ones that are making half the rules that we have to abide by as a population. And to me, that's unacceptable because they're not directly accountable to the people. So we are represented by our representatives in Des Moines and our representatives in Washington, D.C. If they can get rid of some of these agencies to ensure that we are represented and that they're the ones making the rules and not agencies, I think that's a great thing.
Thank you. Ms. Weiner?
So I guess my concern would be to talk in particular to people who are dealing with child protective services and those who work with the ombudsman for nursing homes. We've had really serious cases in both of those areas over the last few years. Children who literally died in foster homes because they were mistreated and not fed. We've seen in the press recently several cases of seniors in nursing homes who died because they were not properly cared for, or their loved one lodged a complaint, a concern, and it was not dealt with for 6 months, and in that period, the person died. So I think that before we merged those, we should have taken a really hard look at why those cases are happening and what needs to occur in order to safeguard our children and safeguard our elders.
Thank you. Next question, we'll start with Mr. Onken. This question is, what plans do you have to clean Iowa waterways?
This is certainly not an area of expertise for me, and I would have to do a lot of research before I was a participant in designing any kind of bill to do anything to clean Iowa waterways. I can say just from hearing things and having a general knowledge of some of our rivers and lakes, they're not clean enough. So maybe we can get rid of one of our other agencies that aren't doing anything or aren't doing things sufficiently, and we can add that funding to our Iowa Natural Resources Agency. But I think I read an article in the paper this last summer or something about brain-eating bacteria in one of the lakes in Iowa, and some guy visiting from Nebraska, bless his soul, he was swimming and he got attacked by this bacteria, and I don't know exactly what happened. I think he was fine, but it did cause issues, and he was in the hospital for a long time. So Mississippi is a great example too of a river that was filthy, I think, back in the 70s. I think it's improved significantly, but it should be cleaner. Companies need to be liable for polluting the rivers and the lakes, and we need to hold them accountable. So.
Thank you. Ms. Weiner.
Back in 2010, there was a constitutional amendment on the ballot to fund clean water, the I will. It passed by 63%, but the 3/8 of a cent of sales tax has never been allocated to fund it. We need to fund it. The Leopold Center at Iowa State University is a premier institution that has the knowledge on how to clean up our water. We need to refund it as well so it can do its job. We need to use buffer strips and prairie strips, and we need to figure out how to deal with the forever chemicals in so many of the wells. The DNR is overstretched. We've seen that in so much of what they have tried to do as well, and I think we probably also need to take a new look at the master matrix.
Thank you. Ms. Levin.
Ensuring that Iowans have clean waterways is not a one-size-fits-all solution. Addressing lead in schools is going to take different solutions than addressing PETs and forever chemicals in our rivers and lakes, and is going to take different strategies than the brain-eating amoeba that Jacob referenced that terrified us all this past summer. What I would say is that we're actually extraordinarily lucky in that we have researchers in Iowa working on solutions individualized to each of those problems. I've been fortunate to hear from some of them this past year, and honestly, the primary thing they're talking about with me is IWELL, which is something I think the League has talked about in the past. In fact, I think I first learned about IWELL through a League presentation maybe 5 years ago. When they brought in some experts to talk about that program, and it's still never seen its funding. So the legislature, in part, is about allocating funds. We need to allocate funds specifically and dedicated to making sure that Iowans have a clean environment.
Thank you. This next question is from Ms. Weiner. What has been your community involvement that best highlights your care and concern for the community?
I've been involved in a number of ways. I have been, until I was elected to city council, I was a board member of Shelter House for several years, which is a key nonprofit in our community. I serve free lunch regularly with the Democrats, which is a truly wonderful program that we have in Iowa City for anyone who wants a free lunch. I've been on the board of my synagogue, Agudas Achim, for 6 years now. I'm currently the president of the congregation. We've been through COVID. We just really reopened for the High Holy Days. And I've done fun things too. I play in the community band. I used to sing with a group called the Hospice Singers that went around to various different nursing homes. So I'd like to think that I really have gotten to see a lot of different aspects of the community and serve it well.
Thank you. Ms. Levin?
I would say my most significant work has been with the South District Neighborhood Association, where I serve on the leadership committee. This is my neighborhood association, which works to educate, inform, and bring opportunities to the south side of the city, everything south of Highway 6, basically. Now through that, I've had the opportunity to serve on the SMID board for our new South District SMID as a neighborhood resident member, and really encouraged the other side of things, which is the business development on that side of town. It is incredibly stagnant, and we are now have so much momentum moving forward. I've been on the board of Iowa City Community Theater on and off since 2010, most recently serving as president and currently serving as past president. I have been a volunteer at University of Iowa Hospitals and Clinics, incredibly fortunate to volunteer in the NICU since 2011. I've also volunteered with the Navy Marine Corps Relief Society when I was living in California, educating and doing financial education for sailors and Marines, young sailors and Marines. So I like to think that I spend a lot of my time helping my community, and this is sort of an extension of that.
Thank you. Mr. Onken?
Thanks. So I think community service is incredibly important, and I think it gives all of us the opportunity to give back a little more. We take so much for ourselves. I grew up in Iowa, and I was able to get my Eagle Scout award, and that required me to do a community service project. Did a big blood drive, got a bunch of blood. I went. I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and we pay 10% of our of our income to tithing, and a lot of that money helps members in the area here in Iowa City. It helps them to live a better life and to get by at times and to invest in themselves. I'm also a returned missionary. I was a missionary in Brazil for 2 years, and I know that didn't directly benefit Iowa City, but it did teach me what things are important and what things I think that are good in a community, and sometimes what things are not so good in a community. So,
Thank you. We are ready for our closing statements. Just as a reminder, there will be 2 minutes for each of you to make a closing statement, and we will start with the House candidates. Ms. Levin, your closing statement.
Thank you so much, and thank you to the League, to City Channel 4, and to everyone who has worked together to put on this event. To me, things like this are absolutely vital, because what is the purpose of our public education system, of events like this, of so many other things, if not to create educated citizens? So what I would say here in closing is just that I really sincerely hope that everyone votes. We have a midterm election here. We all know what can happen there, and it is our responsibility as citizens to take part in the process, not only by voting ourselves, but by encouraging, maybe pushing our friends and family to vote as well. Now, this year you cannot collect someone's mail-in ballot and return it for them unless you are a direct family member, but that doesn't mean you can't drive them to early voting or to the drive-through at the Health and Human Services building. Educating yourself on what's going to be on your ballot and taking the time to vote is the smallest thing we can do to ensure that our future looks the way we want it to. I'm Elinor Levin. I'm hoping to have earned your vote if you live in District 89. I'm hoping that if you are still considering who to vote for, you will take the time to check out some of the other events coming up in the future, and that you will vote your entire ballot, front and back, top to bottom. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Onken.
thank you. So I also appreciate the ability to come and speak freely tonight and see the support of the community, and hopefully a lot of people at home are watching as well. And I hope you will consider, as a voters, some of the important issues that are coming up in Iowa. It sounds like we have an important proposed amendment to the Second Amendment. I would urge each of us to vote so that we can support our Second Amendment rights. It sounds like we will be having the pro-life issue coming up in Iowa. There was a proposed amendment that there will be no rights to abortion, and the taxpayer money will not be funded for abortion. And that's a big issue, and that is coming up, and that will be voted on in the next legislative assembly. And so I want to be a part of that, and I want to be able to vote for life and stand for life. And I want to show everybody that Iowa City has a lot of people that are concerned with these things. There's a lot of people concerned with the life issue. There's a lot of people concerned with the Second Amendment. There's a lot of people concerned with other things going on right now that seem to be commonplace too. Linn-Mar just proposed, they just accepted in their school board the ability for boys and girls to go into whatever locker room they identify with. And as someone with 2 little boys in a family, those types of things coming into our state and pretty close to our community, and if they're not here already, they will be soon. Those are concerning things. We need to be able to do the thing that is right. We need to stand for traditional family values. Those are the values that have brought us here as a society thus far. And we need to stand for life. We need to stand for common sense. And we need to make sure that we're protecting the most vulnerable. Those are our children. Those are the unborn. We need to make sure that we are doing everything that we can to cultivate and hold on to the things that we've enjoyed as a people, so that we can pass those things down. We need to take a step back and consider those things as we're getting ready to vote. So I would just ask that each of you will do that as you go to the ballots on November 8th. And thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. For our next, we'll have the closing statement from Janice Weiner, candidate for Senate District 45.
My thanks to the League as well for organizing this. It really is important that the voters have a chance to hear from the people who seek office and seek to be their elected officials. We didn't have a question on this tonight, but we now live in a post-Roe world. For the first time, half the population has had a fundamental constitutional right stripped. And while abortion remains legal in Iowa, it hangs by a thread. The legislature, as far as I know, doesn't have a medical degree. We know that our governor and leaders of the Republican State House seek to ban it. Post-Dobbs, this is up to the states, so I ask that you vote all the way down your ballot. It's also not hyperbole to say that democracy is on the ballot and that the right to a first-class public education is on the ballot. This election is about our rights and freedoms. It's the most consequential election of our lives, and we need every single one of you to vote. If you're not registered, register now. If you've moved, please update your registration. Make a plan to vote now. Early voting starts in 8 days on October 19th. Election day is November 8th, just 4 weeks from today. We have 28 days to volunteer, knock doors, make calls, and get out the vote. You can contact me at my website, janicewforiowa.com, on Facebook or on Twitter. I'm Janice Weiner, the Democratic nominee for Senate District 45. I believe in the common good. I will listen to you and be your voice, and I ask for your vote.
Thank you. Thank you to, thank you to all of our candidates, those of you in attendance, those watching at home, the Senior Center, and the staff of our local television station for making this video cast and live streaming possible. We would like to remind you that the views expressed in this forum are those of the candidates and that sponsorship of the forum is not an endorsement of any candidate. More information about voting and the candidates can be found at vote411.org. Remember to vote on or before November 8th. Good night.